relationships are like a tennis match back and forth or anything, or you're playing that you can't control the other person. It's like playing the golf course. You can only play your game. If you're playing it to your best ability, you're doing the right things or whatever, and the course just isn't letting you have it, so be it. That relationship may not work. It's not your course, right? But if you do the right things, you can say, "Hey, I did all I got," and the person will reciprocate it. You'll have a good bond or whatever. The same thing with business. If you do what is needed to be done and you put in your preparation work, right, ahead of time, I think that you're preparing to succeed. And then also you're preparing to rebound if you fail in that way, and you're building that adversity.
Welcome to the Growth Mavericks podcast, where we know that entrepreneurship isn't just about strategy. It's about stamina. It's about disrupting your default and getting comfortable being uncomfortable so you don't burn out before you break through. I'm your host, Adam Callinan. Let's get to work. Our conversation today is with Taylor Artman from Surf and Turf Club. Taylor is a lifelong competitive golfer. He started at a super young age with dad dropping him off at the country club, really, really young, playing all day, ended up at Oklahoma City University, won a couple national championships, All-American, then spent 7 years grinding it out on the pro circuit and was good enough to keep playing, but to his own accord, not good enough for anyone to know his name. He got hurt, tore a labrum, broke his wrist, had 2 major surgeries, and ended up leaving the tour and starting completely unintentionally a apparel company in a very unique way. He started with just purely a community for golfers in Southern California and started making merchandise for their community there in Southern California, and people started wanting to buy it. And it has a really interesting founding story and launch story and growth story with respect to how they entered wholesale and pro shops all over the country. And it really is a testament to the reality that there is not one way to build and launch and start a business, particularly a consumer brand. So we spent a lot of time talking about the challenges, the things that are working, a lot of time talking about the things that are not working. We spent a bit of time sort of nerding out on the direct consumer space and get into a little bit of fun where he's almost interviewing me back on the D2C stuff, which is funny. But I enjoyed obviously being as helpful as I can wherever I can. And we also get into spending time around the parallels of operating at that level in sport, both collegiate and professional, and entrepreneurship and business building and startups, and the need for humility and short-term memory, and short-term memory meaning forgetting the things that you just did that screwed up and moving on to the next as quickly as possible without the emotional attachment. This, like all the conversations we have, is really unique. Taylor is very upfront and open about the struggles and where he thinks that they're doing really well and staying in his own lane, and where he knows that or at least believes that they need to do some work to continue to expand largely in and around the direct consumer space. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Taylor Artman. Let's get into it. You're a golfer.
Yep.
First and foremost.
Well, now he's mentioned it. No, not anymore. That was probably one of the biggest changes. I would say I lost my identity a little bit for a little while. Yeah, I played golf my whole life. Started when I was very young. My dad would take me out at age 2 or 3 to the golf course and carry me on one shoulder, the clubs on the other, let me mess around out there, and then they drop me off as a kid. It was a bit different time back then. You could just drop a kid off at the golf course literally when he was 7, unattended, and pick him up
I remember.
at 4 or 5 p.m. And so that was my babysitter. And there was a bunch of other kids. I mean, there had to be 10 or 20 of them between the ages of 7 and 16 out there messing around. And we're still all friends, even if we don't see each other. But when we do, we're like, yeah, that was one of our little trails gang. And so I grew up playing competitively early, 7 or 8 years old, and then played junior golf all growing up. I was pretty good in high school, I was all state. I went to college. My college career was up and down at the start, and I had a kind of a weird start as far as signing that was obscure, but I ended up at Oklahoma City University and played 4 years there, and it was great. We won 3 national championships, one as a coach, two as a player, a couple time All-American, and I had some great players on my team and learned a lot about the game and developed my game. And so saw some of my teammates turning pro, making it, and figured I need to do that. I need to go try as well. I've made it to the top of every level. And so, from junior golf, I've won national tournaments to high school to college. And so I need to go give it a shot. And so I went out there and played 7 years. So I played long enough to keep playing. And I was good enough, I guess, to play for that long, but not good enough to where anybody knows who I am or cares. I didn't make a lot of money, but I made a lot of connections. So a lot of respect from some folks in the industry, I think, at least on a personal level. When you're out there that long, you meet guys and you travel in the world with them. And so that was what I used to be. I was a golfer, yes, to answer your question. And then got hurt. You're entering your 30s, and I don't have kids, no wife, really no money at all. I did have a house, but, the mortgage payment was a different story. Had roommates and stuff. And so it was kind of like, once I was hurt, it's either do I come back for this surgery? And actually, I got hurt once, came back for 2 tournaments, and then I got hurt again. I had another huge surgery, and I think that was God's way of being like, I think we're gonna switch gears here, And so that's when I didn't know what I was gonna do. At one point I was gonna take a realtor test, like a certification. That's what my mom does, and then I don't know. I figured I'd get in oil and gas maybe. I didn't know. I had no idea what to do or coach college golf. I 2 summers before in California when I had moved out there. I lived out there from 12 to 18, or 2012 to 2018, and that's where I was playing in the winters. We started this thing called the Surf and Turf Club, and it was just a small social club, and that was what made me not a golfer. Looking back, is like I was a golf voice, I guess, from that point on, because we started our company and people wanted to buy it and they wanted to surround themselves with it and wear it. And I'll get into the rest here in a little bit. But yeah, I'm now just in golf, I guess.
What were your injuries?
I tore my right labrum. I had 6 anchors, which is about the most you can do without a full replacement. And then I tore it in college. I just kept making it worse and worse and worse and worse. And then it came dislocated either 5 or 6 times. My buddy caddied for me. He would probably know. Mid-round, I'm popping my shoulder back into place, and I'm like, I think this is probably the end. And then the next one, it shattered my wrist on a scooter. One of those Lime scooters. Wasn't even drinking yet. I was on the way.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But I think it worked out. I think sometimes God gives you those hard lessons, and I had a good run, and I'm thankful for it.
So you get then into this company or concept that you started socially, it sounds like, kind of just like a social community sort of thing in Southern California. And you start making like shirts and hats, and suddenly you say people wanted to buy them. Were they just people within the community, or did you have people stop you on the street asking you to buy that hat?
So that's where it got interesting. So the idea was to create this social club. And so we have 2 or 3 tour players and 2 club professionals, like at a golf course, And so it was all of us. We're all young. We're all, give or take, probably 32 to 28 at the time, in that range. And we wanted to, out in Palm Springs, it's all retirement and it's industry people. And then it's the young people you can't go play golf at almost anywhere. And if you do, it's a public course, no good. And so we have friends in the community, the bartenders, the service, whatever, that are our age. And we can't go play golf with them places, et cetera. And they don't have places to play, but we can go play anywhere we want because of our career. And so we started this club called the Surf and Turf Club. So we're an official USGA GIN handicap club, just like any golf course, but without the property and the grass, right? Pretty much. And so we have members, et cetera. So you join the club, you get a hat and a t-shirt. And back then it was just, I think it was Imperial hat and t-shirt, just generic. We bought it off a buddy that sold it, put our logo on there. My friend Pete made the logo. It's a surfboard and a flag crossed with 16, which is the year established, on there. And we called the Surf and Turf Club, and we were on our way. Well, we host a few events. We did some charity stuff, some other fun stuff. We had our membership, maybe got 200 members. The next thing you know, a bunch of non-members that we would run into or people that we would see at these events would be like, "I want one of those hats and shirts." And you're like, "I don't know if you can have one. You're not a member of
Yeah.
our club."
Yeah. This is a
Right?
secret club. You can't
Yeah,
come
it's
in
like
here.
that's in Hell's Angels for their leather jackets. Like,
Right.
no, but then enough people ask you and you're broke and you're like, "We need to find a way to sell this." 'Cause they're
Yeah.
like, "I don't want a handicap. I already have one. I'm a member at 2 places." And then the interesting part happened. The plantation, let's see, Weston Mission Hills, I think, and a golf shop in Canada that was owned by a member at one of our clubs there. And then a handful of others, pro shops, liked it so much. They were like, we want to carry it in our store. We don't have an LLC. Is this even trademarked? I mean, we don't know the first thing. And so I didn't know, I wasn't in the golf industry. I was just a pro golfer. So I didn't even know like what minimums were. I had nothing. Luckily, Jordan did. And so
Where at this
that's
point, where are
that's
you
create.
making where are you
What's that?
making the product? Where are you making the product at that point?
That's what's funny. It's just like generic, like industry blank stuff.
Online?
It's not, yeah. And then after that, that's when we started working with Yupong FlexFit at the start. We started getting some better hats, some patches overseas, and we started upping our inventory. And we said yes. And we put it in these first few shops and we started selling it. And so my uncle was in Polo Ralph Lauren for 30 something years. And then my roommate at the time was national sales manager for a golf brand. And so I was, I guess, a little connected to apparel without knowing anything at all. I guess I was connected enough that I thought I could figure this out. And so, yeah, so we decided let's make surf and turf golf apparel. We'll call it Coast to Coast Apparel, and then we'll have the club, Surf and Turf Club. And so then we went and got, we had our logo trademarked actually, but didn't have the name. And then we go get a resale certificate. You learn all this stuff. And really, that was the tipping point right there. We shifted overnight from a club to an apparel brand, and we're selling in some of the most high-end courses in the United States at first. Cal Club, Bermuda Dunes, which is like Arnold Palmer's place out there. I mean, some really great properties. Overleaf in Arizona was in like our top 10 or 15 properties, and then we were selling one in Canada before we even had a website. And so now we have a little bit of a thing. And then, I'll get into it further, but that started scaling up to where we couldn't really do it. And then in 2018, I sponsored the North Texas PGA Championship or a section championship, which is all the club pros in a region are a member of a PGA section, right? And they go in, they play these events. The winner of that one that gets in the Byron Nelson, the PGA Tour event. And I sponsored it and maxed out our credit cards. And this was kind of caused a little bit of a disruption with me and my co-founders. I was being a little cavalier, but I was like, I know all these guys. Like, we're going to sponsor it and we give them a hat, whatever. We only had like 400 hats in inventory and I'm about to give away 200 of them. Sponsor it, go out there, get my sister and Michael, another co-founder, to help me. We make these little packs of like check 18 pieces, 36 or 72. And we put it on this desk and you pick your hat and then you check your box. And we wrote 54 orders for $43,000 and just while they were registering for the tournament right there on a little table. And
From individual country clubs.
Yep. So each pro is a buyer for their club. And so each guy came through, they knew us. And so I just had an ABC deal there. Just check yes or no. I'll have an email in your inbox. And they all just were like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. This is a cool hat. Whatever. Do 36, do 18, and I don't think, but maybe one or two did 72. That was like shirts and hats. But they all at least tried it for the most part. And yeah, we're 54 new accounts right there. So we went from about 50 accounts to 105 right there. And then I was like, oh, shit. Okay. I'm going to need some product. And so I had Jordan ship everything that we had. I told him what happened. And I was like, I need an employee. We have 100 accounts now. And we also have $43,000 of orders and no money. I got a loan from some friends and family, and we started. I hired my apartment manager as our employee number one.
What do you think it cost? Epic. What do you, from your recollection, what did it cost to sponsor that event?
I know for a fact it was $4,000. it was 3,500, and our credit card had a max of 6,000, and we already had about 2,600 on there.
That's so epic.
And
So
I
yeah,
literally
let's
maxed out to the max. Yeah, and then we had nothing, no cash. I probably used that for other stuff, and then I was like, "I need help. We gotta order a bunch of stuff
yeah, so for the non-math majors in the room, that's an almost 11x return on that investment. Like,
in a couple
holy
hours."
hell. Well done. Like every company on the planet would do that all day long. Literally. Like that's the new sales technique. You just go around and sponsor like the underlying tour events. That's
I don't know
epic.
what possessed me to do it. They reached out to me, the North Texas PGA, they saw one, and I knew those guys, and this guy, David Anderson, he was like, "You should sponsor it." And I was like, "What?" Like, the other sponsors, by the way, are like Yamaha, Bushnell, Srixon, and Titleist.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we did it, and I gave away, and then also we went and I went over the top on the 200 pieces. We put PGA logos on all of them, and I still see those around. I've got one in my office up here, and so now that's part of our deal. Every time we get a new rep, we encourage that they sponsor the section, or we'll pay for it, and then that way they're a partner. So now, as of this year, we'll be adding the Gulf states. So we got South Texas, North Texas, South Central, and the Gulf states that we work with now. Well, Gulf states not yet; it'll be next year, but we're giving out free product this year.
So is how much of the business is now online with just like random consumers going on and buying stuff versus this like really unique PGA distribution model?
So that's where it still gets weirder, I think, in today's modern, in 2020, every brand, when you think about all the brands that are going right now out there, all the brands that are in retail stores and especially in country clubs, things like that, for the most part, they either got, I guess, viral online first, like a Bad Birdie or Breezy Golf or Good or something like that, or they are a staple brand that's been around forever, a juggernaut, a Polo and Peter Millar, Ashworth, whatever. And with us, we have never had our online stronger than our wholesale. And so, we actually right now probably do, in fact, I just saw the numbers yesterday. We do about 2% of our sales online right now that's for the last 2 quarters. Yeah, it's about 2%. At one point, that was usually consistently 10 to 15, but now we're ramping up. I got a new sales team that I've built in the last couple months, and so that's ramping up, and so now that's diluted that even more. We got to be one of the only brands that has reach like that. 650 some odd properties across 42 states, 4 countries right now on the wholesale front. And then I don't think I'm not talking us up. This is something we got to fix. We have no running social media ads, and we haven't sent an email in 6 months. And we got to be the only person not doing that. I mean, it's almost stupid, but we're just so busy with this other stuff. We send emails obviously every day to our wholesale and to our partners on that level, because we're doing events now. So we do a D2C move we're creating an NIL program through college golf teams and then through mini tour players. And so we have a retail aspect where we sell to the customer, but it's at an event, if that makes like a pop-up shop. So I guess if you count that, it's a little bit higher. But online, yeah, it's so low. And I don't know any other brands that are doing that. It seems like even huge brands doing millions online can't get indoors.
Yeah, my position would be that what you're doing is not bad. It's actually incredible. And it's different today than it was 10 years ago from an online customer acquisition standpoint. 10 years ago, we could spend ungodly amounts of money and acquire customers online at really good returns. I mean, that's
Right.
literally the entirety of what BottleKeeper, my last company, was built on, was that.
You noticed a big
And
change there?
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I
we
just
got
thought
to
we know
ride the
ton.
wave
Yeah,
up
I
and
thought
down.
really good back then when we did it a little bit for a little while. And so I was like, we can pick that back up. And then we've dabbled in it here or there over the last couple of years. And it just it doesn't return this. It's still ROI positive, but not like it was. And so I
Yeah,
just thought we were
here's
bad
the
at it.
challenge with here's the challenge. And there are two parts, one of which is an sort of just what's happening in the market in the industry, like wider consumer brand industry channel area issue. That was like the worst sentence ever. The other is something that might be specific to your style of business. And it would be actually interesting to kind of break this down. One is that again, the 10 years ago, we could do it because what we paid to acquire a customer was way less because there were fewer people advertising online. So it's just purely a supply and demand economics problem. And where we had fewer people advertising and a ton of eyeballs. And then as more people advertise, they weren't growing the number of eyeballs. They were, so you're offsetting the supply and demand thing. And all that does is push up the price to get access to those eyeballs. So that happened up until COVID. Yeah. And then COVID changed that. And, obviously that was not a planned event to my knowledge. So COVID changed that, where you then suddenly had companies that had product in states where their warehouses got shut down.
Yes.
Right. And so those companies could not advertise online anymore. And now you had the demand side come down, and you had the supply side, because everybody's sitting on their asses on their couch for months and months and months and months, sitting on Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff.
Our online sales went up during COVID.
Yeah, the supply side went up while the demand side went down. Like, we crushed COVID. I mean, I know like COVID was awful for a whole lot of reasons, but for a lot of consumer brands, if you could ship product, it was like going back to the golden days. But then that corrects. Right. So, I mean, we're not in that period anymore. We're like, the zero interest rate period is long gone. So the difference now is that we're back reset on that worse for consumer brands, supply and demand economics thing. So you just have to use it differently. Now, the kicker in a hat, in a company that's selling hats and shirts and merch and things like this, comes down to the amount of profit that you can generate. It's called contribution profit, but it's like the amount of profit you can generate from a given hat. So I'm like, make up numbers here. If you're selling a hat to a consumer for $35 and the hat cost, obviously I don't know your margins and we don't need to talk about them unless you really want to, $15 to make. And then it costs $5 to ship it to the customer. And then there's another 3% for credit cards and 2.5% for Shopify, like all the things. We end up getting to like, our cost on that hat is like $22 to $25. That means you only have $10 left to acquire a customer. That's not going to happen. Like, just in a pure customer acquisition model, it's not going to, maybe it could have happened in COVID. It probably did, but that was a weird time. It doesn't work that way. Like right now.
You think the customer acquisition cost is that high? Like on,
if you're doing it as a pure paid media model, yes. But that's why you can't do it as a pure paid media model. And this isn't just something that is impacting apparel brands and things like that. It impacts everybody.
For sure.
Now it's like, you create the content. I'm sure you're creating a lot of content. The things are going out. The stuff that goes, viral or like does significantly better than the rest of it, that's where you put your paid ad dollars. So you take something that's already on fire and you add fuel to the fire with paid ads, but you can't use like our old spray and pray model of paid advertising, that used to work. It's probably so dangerous now, unless
we look like a freaking magazine ad and SkyMall, just a picture, scroll here, whatever. Yeah. It's outdated. And then you got like, I don't know, Allbirds or something, and they're making innuendos and jokes and, riding roller coasters. It's like, of course they're going to buy those guys, So, I'm really, I admire like some of those brands and their creative online, and I hope to take our creative and go there. We've just been so bootstrapped as an organically growing brand that we have to focus on what we're good at.
100%.
Anytime I've shifted that way, you'd be surprised, but our manpower and our direction goes that way. And, how quickly it can impact you if you miss just a month of reorders of, when you've got several hundred accounts. I mean, that adds up. That's people's livelihood. And so we're looking to add that back in, but that's tough. And I think that's how the D2C brands, why they're probably struggling to go to market and to hire these people, whatever, because they're probably constantly trying to hire people to help build and scale that, because they're making the big margins. We're doing the big volume, right? Those are the two deals there.
Yeah.
We're probably outselling in volume some of the big D2C brands, but they're making freaking boatload per item, where we're split. Maybe, yeah.
The kicker is what they have to pay to acquire a customer online. This is, this is like
true.
What I like. My whole life revolves around my wife and kids. My professional life revolves around a lot of this conversation and around where to drive profitability inside of a brand that is generally omnichannel, that's doing like D2C and B2B. And I can tell you, both from personal experience and now seeing it in a lot of other companies, When you have a D2C channel against a B2B channel, the B2B channel is always more profitable.
I can see.
Always. Because you're not paying to acquire the customer.
Yeah.
That
There's no cost.
situation. Yeah, there's no,
I mean,
I
your
mean,
sales
in
rep
some,
commission, I guess there is a cost, but it's so far long gone, right? It was when I sponsored that event, or it's when we did this. It's so far long gone that it becomes an overhead or a fixed marketing cost, depending on what it was, and it's not associated as directly. So when it's diluted over thousands of products, yeah, it's a very low cost. You're right.
yeah, that D2C might be paying 40 cents of every dollar on paid ads. That's a 2.5 return on ad spend, which is like mediocre. That's actually pretty good for some brands.
And
That
that's where
40 cents of every dollar.
and too, I've had other entrepreneurs I've talked to, and some turned to me for advice, and that's where I got turned away from it. Was the ad spend got down to like 4x or less, whereas like you were saying, 8 years ago it was 8 or 10, and and you could do that. Now it's 2 to 4, and you're paying somebody, and they're like, "Oh, we're doing 2 to 4x on ad spend." Or whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, but let's remember here, we're not selling a non-inventory item. You're selling something that has a cost, and then there's shipping, and then you're hooking them in with a 10% discount, and then you're only giving me, and we're paying, I don't know, whatever it is, like you said, per day or break it down to per customer. And then it's like 2 to 4x. It's like we're breaking even with every sale. And you're right. I think that's probably been the biggest shifter, and probably why I've gone away from it. It's hard. I got asked the other day if I could spend $1,000 to make as much money as possible, what would I do? And I had my answer, and it was offline, but I wanted to hear yours. Like, what would you spend $1,000 as far as digital media and advertising? You're the guru in that spot for sure, and I'm clearly not a D2C, uh, social media ad guru, just by our numbers. In fact, I'm 2% of one.
Quick break, and this one is personal. Your ROAS is lying to you. I know this because mine lied to me for years. When I was building Bottle Keeper, I'd see a 4x ROAS or 5x ROAS, and I think we were absolutely crushing it. When we get to the end of the month, we'd see our P&L, and we barely broke even. Now, the dashboards and the platforms, all the things would say one thing. The bank account and the P&L said something entirely different. They were disconnected. The problem wasn't ads. It wasn't marketing efficiency. It's that those output metrics like ROAS and MER, they don't account for all the stuff that crushes your margins. These are things that are shipping and fulfillment, credit card fees, Shopify fees, the marketing agency we're using, the paid media itself. That's the only thing that ROAS accounts for. But there's all these other expenses. So I built this framework that starts with net profit and works backwards to tell you exactly how to spend ad budget and how the ROAS needs to perform in order to hit your net profit target. These aren't benchmarks. It's literally your numbers and expenses based on what's happening in your business. And best of all, I'm giving these secrets away for free in a profit masterclass that I created recently. It's the exact system I used at Bottle Keeper to get to over 60 million in total sales with just 4 employees and 0 investors, ultimately to a private equity acquisition. So you can find this profit masterclass at pentane.com. But for now, let's get back to the show. Yeah, again, I would not downplay the value of that statement. Like I wouldn't. There's incredible value in that statement that is being missed. You are not missing the boat by not being like D2C heavy.
I think it'll be a lot easier to fix that wheel that's broken than the
percent. It's way easier to go that direction than it is to go from that direction into your direction.
Right. I mean, we're selling at top resorts. We're selling to college golf teams. We're selling to, some of the nicest country clubs in the world. I think we can figure it out on online ads. There's people on TikTok here that are making, boatloads of money from their basement. Like we should be able to figure it out. But yeah, I was just curious what you would, what in today's world, what that looked like.
I mean, I would go and find the whatever social post, the things that you're doing, go find the one that just crushed. You don't even necessarily know why. I mean, it just crushed completely organically. And I would put it behind that in a boosted post.
Your Meta, you think would be the best one?
Wherever it lives.
Wherever. Okay. Yeah.
That's
good. I'd see that's where there's so many options now, man. It's crazy. And you got these marketplaces, and then now you can do, what do they call them? It's like through your Shopify's and your other deals. So it's like an ad that'll go through. So it'll like pop up on other services, like when you go log on to Wi-Fi's or whatever. I'm trying to think of it's a targeted marketing, but what the what that ad is called.
Yeah, it's all retargeting is
It's
the
retargeting, and it comes up through other channels, right? And I know that's an omni-channel, but not just on Instagram. It's not scrolling. It shows up at various spots. And I was wondering, where it is right now, and because that's a question I keep asking myself, like when I start, 'cause we're going to any minute probably, because it needs to ramp up. It's like I don't want to like sit and think about it forever, so I'm going to start somewhere. But I'd like to at least start educating myself. Probably one of my
I'd say the big
go ahead.
difference today is the quality of the creative really, really, really matters. It
Yeah,
didn't used to. It was always important, but it was never like the paramount piece. And that's different today because the ad networks, whether it's on Meta or on Google, or I mean, pick an ad network, TikTok, Pinterest, whatever, they're really heavily prioritizing quality of content. And that doesn't mean big production. It's just whatever the person that has the eyeball on their platform, whatever they're engaging with is quality content.
right.
So you have to produce a lot of it and to be able to test and tweak and test and test and test.
Oh
And
yeah,
then you find that one that goes, parabolic, and you put money. That's the one that you spend that $1,000 on.
yeah. I mean, it's just A/B test after A/B test after A/B test.
Yeah, you just throw it up. Yeah, totally.
It's kind of a cool science, and one that I'm a marketing major, but I would say that's far from the advertising part is far from my skill set, but it's something I look forward to doing when we get a minute. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, it
we're ramping
sounds
up.
like
We're
the whole
doubling again this year through our wholesale. That we're gonna get there here soon, but yeah, it's very interesting.
that sounds like it's working incredibly well. So I mean, there's the classic, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, I think that is a little bit of a broken statement and that you always find ways to do things better and optimize them. But
I always like to say, I think one of my things from golf, right, is play your game and let your clubs do the talking. Like you can't play somebody else's game. We're not going to play. One of these viral brand. We can't play with them on that space. Like we can't. What's the guys that are here in Dallas? That do all the trick shots.
mm,
You know what I'm talking about?
I know you're talking about because I've seen them on Instagram and
Yeah,
whatnot.
they do all those trick shots. Really cool. Lucky. No, dude, perfect. Dude, perfect. It's like we can't beat them at that at that game, and that's okay. And so, so if they're selling merch on there for their dude perfect trick shots and all those cool videos or whatever, so we try to play our game. And right now, ours is not just in that channel of wholesale and B2B, but it's in through our events and through our connections through golf. That's how we started it. Kind of like how I don't want to compare it to Nike, but how Nike started out as a track brand, right, and grew on Steve Prefontaine and went through track stars. But then they got into basketball, football. Now they're in golf, everything. That we want to use golf as the, I guess, initial groundbreaking, way to get into anywhere that way, and then we go into other sports, and through our, progression, but also sticking in our lane through product too. We've not released a polo yet as a golf brand, and people think that's obscure, and I get asked that question more than anybody by customers. And that one hurts when you got hundreds of customers wanting to buy something that costs 4 times more. But that's a tricky game too. It's a whole nother deal. It's going to come with the learning curve. I don't care how confident I get. I know I'm not as smart as I think I am or whatever. It's something's going to bite me in the ass, pardon my French. And playing our game and sticking to headwear has been probably one of the biggest turning points the last 2 years. We've shifted down from dabbling in other things. And we're putting all of our focus on not just existing customers, but existing products and improving those and trying to just be the best at those. For a while there, I was trying to mess around with the things that weren't us to try to, get a little bit in everywhere. And it's like, let's just get a lot in a few places, and it's started working. And so I feel like with the D2C and B2B, it's the same thing as the product. It's like you got to stick in your space and play your game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much value to going deep instead of wide. And then, when that time is right, which is a decision you get to make that has risk associated to it, it might be okay. It'll take the blinders off a little bit and play some shiny object syndrome.
Right. I've fallen guilty to those.
Oh, we all have. Yeah. Welcome to the club.
We
Yeah.
had a Silver Turf Pro Golf Series one time. We did. I mean, yeah, we've done some weird
I
stuff.
mean, the reality is like, you got to try stuff.
Yeah.
That's part of what it is. I mean, that's where the education comes from. If it's a content thing, and like, it will take a while to figure out how to create content. It just does. That's the reality. You have to
I
start
mean,
somewhere.
we started out as a club, and then we end up an apparel company overnight, and we're in, we got in properties that established brands couldn't get. We didn't know that. And I had another story that's kind of popular. When we first started, right? One of these courses, the Plantation, actually, it's a great course, probably my favorite ever out in California. And they ordered, I don't remember, 18 hats or something. So we take it to this mom and pop's place, and we give it to them, whatever. And we're like, here's the logo, the DST file, which I didn't know what that was, which is, for those listening, is a digitization file. It's for embroidery. So it teaches you, it shows you like the thread, the route that it takes when it switches from color A to color B, etc., how dense it is, the whole deal. And it's a very specific, really important file that you have to have. You even have to have a certain app to open it. But anyways, we give this file to this mom and pop's place. And it was a hat just like this. And we say, we just put it right there on the mesh and color coordinate it to the hat or whatever. And so they did it. And so we go pick it up next week or whatever, take it over there. And one of the Travis Matthew guys, which is a huge brand in our space, he said, how did you put that logo on that mesh like that? We don't do that. I mean, these guys are like just sold for $150 million at Callaway. And we're like, we don't know. We didn't know that we didn't know.
Yeah.
We were like, I don't follow, and they're like, yeah, we don't do that. We will not put a logo on a mesh hat like that. We sell truckers. Turns out, I figure out that a lot of brands back then didn't and still don't today, or they don't for certain appliques. Only reason we did is because we're so ignorant. We're just put it right there. We're just right there inside. Yeah. And we didn't think anything of it, and we'll pick it up next week. We went and had beers or whatever, and that was it. And this mom and pop took the extra time to make this file dense enough, and they put in some time into it to make it, because they probably knew, because they're pros. And it's this kind of elderly woman, retired woman. She just wants to make these kids, make their day. And we went and sold it. And then after that, we asked her what she did, whatever. And so we send any vendors, we're like, be sure and do this to the file. And so our trucker hats come with logos inside, and they never have the kind of spotty blemishes, that the mesh will bring out. And the only reason that happened is because we weren't afraid to try. And two, we didn't know any better. And so it's like, you got to try everything once. And sometimes, even if somebody else didn't do it, like, what if it works, right? That's how everything new started. And like first podcast, it doesn't make sense at the time. Now it does. Everybody's got one.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see on my wall, there's a sign here that I've had for 15 years at like every office I've ever been in. It says question everything. And that's not because I'm like a super conspiratorial person. It's because of that exact thing. Like, why? I think the question why, the word why, is so fantastically valuable when used correctly, which is not how my 4-year-old always uses it. Let's be clear. But it is such a critically important question. You go like 3 layers of why into something is really helpful.
I think why is easily the most important word, not just to ask others or ask yourself or whatever, but as a vision in general. If you're going to work at a place or you're leading people to work there and hiring, whatever, you got to remember not just why you started, right? But you got to explain whether I'm making hats for you or whatever, or working for you, it doesn't matter. If you have an end goal, I need to know, like, why are you needing this to be this way? What was the goal here, right? Because once you tell me that, I can be like, oh, I get it. So you just want, you just want to make sure that those 2 colors match and it's not too big or whatever. That's all you had to say, and whatever that could be. Like, why is it bothers you that turning in my emails this way or whatever, like asking that. The other person probably has a very valid reason that's not what you think. And then, but you internally can lose sight of it, I think, too. And Simon Sinek has a big one of Know Your Why, his book. And I love that. And it's like, anytime you're in a bad spot, or anytime it maybe made a mistake, or you're doing something good, it's like, why is this happening, right? And it's either because I got curious and I started doing this, or I started focusing on this instead of this, or, why am I struggling right now? Well, because I'm not doing what's energizing me, or whatever it is. And I think that why, I'm glad you said that, because I think that one curiosity is one of the strongest values you can have.
Totally agree. So shifting gears a little bit, something that we're always do here, and this is not a gotcha, so don't worry. How do you deal with this? This is actually really relevant. Having played at the level of sport that you have, how have you mentally dealt with and prepared yourself for maybe starting with like the wild ups and downs of being a professional athlete, being a high level collegiate and professional athlete? And how does that translate into being an entrepreneur, or does it?
No, it does for sure. And actually, if love writing, and if I was to write a book, there'd be one that would start, and the name would already be "Play Your Game." That's my saying, but it would be the parallels of golf and sport. I mean, I'm sorry, sport or golf and business, and but relationships as well. Those three things, and how relationships are like a tennis match back and forth, or anything, or you're playing that you can't control the other person. It's like playing the golf course. You can only play your game. If you're playing it to your best ability, you're doing the right things or whatever, and the course just isn't letting you have it, so be it. That relationship may not work. It's not your course, right? But if you do the right things, you can say, "Hey, I did all I got," and that person will reciprocate it, and you'll have a good bond or whatever. The same thing with business. If you do what is needed to be done, and you put in your preparation work right ahead of time, I think that you're preparing to succeed, and then also you're preparing to rebound if you fail in that way, and you're building that adversity. And so that connects back to like the that adverse moment in sport and business alike, of there's like a shame factor or a ego, pride, humility there when you make mistakes or your business isn't taking off or whatever. That correlates back to 7 years of pro golf. Had a lot of ups and downs, man. And more downs than ups for sure. I got to look back to think of some ups, but you're down so much. And there was a running joke that I would talk to one of my college teammates I traveled with, and we would be driving back from a tournament or whatever. And we'd be like, dude, doesn't it suck when you're like 5 over on 16 and you're just like, my family's going to hate me. I'm going to have no friends. Like, no, like I'm an embarrassment. I just worked all year for this just to go bogey, the first 3 holes. And in business, I think that you have the exact same, really like self-aware but self-unaware, I guess, moment, because you're losing sight of reality for a second. But you think the world's crumbling down, that this is your identity, that you're, only as good as this last result. That's not true, And I think that when you're building a business, you encounter these ups and downs that are so astronomically unimportant, but important also, that there's small wins in everything, whether it be a learning experience that can develop you for the rest of your life. So that's what you have to take from the big side of it. And the small side of it is, like, it's not the end of the world. No one's dying. I guess there are some careers where lives are at stake or whatever, not
Yeah.
in my line of work.
Yeah. Not mine either.
Yeah, and so, yeah, money can be involved, livelihoods are at stake, but that's usually a compounded chain of events, right? When it starts getting that way. A failed product release, a ad that doesn't work, 2% online sales, whatever, you can make up for it somewhere else. Just like in golf, I thought all the times back, I was really good at putting and wedging and chipping and hit it pretty straight, but wasn't a long hitter, and I didn't have great like long irons. Anyway, so my short game was always great. The one time out of 10, I would go out and hit the ball like freaking Adam Scott or Tiger Woods. I would putt marginally and chip marginally. And it's like, that is what business is like. The second you're doing this other thing good that you just figured out, the other thing stagnates. And that's because your focus shifted. And, and you didn't have to. And that's okay. But that's a competitive spirit that is making that happen good on one side, but it's going to come with a balance on the other. I don't know what law that is, but it's one. What goes up something's got to come down, right? Cause and effect. And so I would say, from the adversity standpoint, golf or sport and business owners really get that on how to bounce back, whether that's from injury, bad performances, slumps, but also keeping their cool, that you don't play good forever, right? Rory McIlroy won the Masters 2 weeks ago, and I guarantee you he's already had a moment on the range being like, "God, I freaking suck,"
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's life. And so to have humility, but also keep your confidence without being overconfident, because you see a lot of business owners get overconfident, over cocky, and it doesn't have to last forever. All these accounts don't have to keep buying our stuff. You got to take care of these customers. You got to keep making great product. You can't skip, all these steps just because you got to figure it out. And you can't do that in sports either. You have to keep showing up every day, and you got to be there for longer than the other guy.
And the reality that those folks that develop that overconfidence for whatever reason, I mean, I generally think that that has a tendency to happen where confidence is given without being earned, where there's not effort, significant effort in there to develop that confidence.
And I think that's where it correlates too, is like when you try your best at something, and I don't like the word try, but when you give it your best at something for a long time and you don't see results, that's, I would say, entrepreneurship and pro sports is that.
Yeah,
But one day,
that's where the humility comes from.
right, one day, one of two things will happen, and like you're either going to finally get drafted or win that big thing or whatever, and the rewards will come, or if you don't and you are middle of the road or whatever, you can look back knowing you accomplished something that very few have done when you opened a business and ran it. Whether it became, Polo Ralph Lauren or your boutique on the corner, you did something most can't. They can, but they won't. They didn't, right? And so I think that's where, minor league baseball players, pro golfers, practice league, NFL, what any of those guys, high level college players didn't quite make it. They have everything inside them that the greats did too, I think. And so I'd encourage them to take that to business, because I've noticed a strong correlation between athletes and business for sure.
And it makes perfect sense to be
Yeah.
able to operate at that level. To your point, even making practice squat is something that 99.999% of the typical population is never going to accomplish and achieve. It takes a certain type of mindset and grit and capacity for discomfort.
Exactly. Discomfort's a big one. You got to be able to listen to the crowd and hear them and hear them enough that you hear the support and that you can learn things, but you got to be able to weed out too. Because, I mean, shoot, people say stuff all the time. You get reviews. You'd be shocked. I mean, we don't get a package out in a day. It's like 1 star, I'm calling the BBB, the owner's
I know
ball.
exactly what that is. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I am all too familiar with that.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're just bashing into the whole brand's history, because our package didn't get there by Monday. And so you got to, and people aren't going to like your products sometimes, and that's okay, right? I was getting a call. But yeah, so I think that a short memory, but a useful curiosity, I guess. And then also, just the ability to just take the good with the good and run with it, and then use the bad to your advantage, but forget the rest. Because one, we talk bad about ourselves too. Like nobody talks worse about themselves
Mhm.
than a high level athlete that just messed up at a big stage. They talk to, at times in their worst, they talk to themselves like no one should ever talk to a human. That's what my sports psychologist be like. You would never talk to somebody like that. Why do you talk to yourself like that? And you got to catch yourself. And same thing, I think as a business owner, it's lonely out there. Feels a lot like golf. You can't, you can kind of turn to your caddy or coach, but they're not playing. They don't really get it, right? And as a business owner, it's tough. It's lonely, but it's also um, a, a noble, I guess, role that can make you feel proud of it if you just remember why you started and that you're doing the best you can. That's all you can control. It's your game.
Epic. Thank you, Taylor. Where do you want people to find you? Find Surf and Turf.
Our Instagram is Surf and Turf Club. It's Surf and Turf Club, not golf. And then Facebook. We just got a TikTok in the last month. We're still figuring it out as we've gone over. We're by a long shot, not a D2C all-star quite yet with the social media. But yeah, TikTok is Surf and Turf Club also, and then surfandturfgolf.com. And we hope to see you guys around. Find us at events, buy us in your pro shop or business. We're all over the place. Thanks for having me, Adam. That was fun.
That was great. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah, you got it.
A huge thanks to our guests today. Don't forget, this is powered by Pentane Financial and Advertising Command Center for Consumer Brands. Stop what you're doing, put your phone down, walk away from the computer screen, go outside, get some air, do something hard, push your limits, get uncomfortable, become more durable and more resilient, create the stamina required to get through those entrepreneurial barriers, stay in the game for as long as you can, and we will see you next time.